All right, I want to thank everybody again for coming. My name is Sarah Torbert. I'm the State 4-H Volunteer Specialist in Wyoming. So if you need any questions, you decide you like this PowerPoint and you'd like to use it on your own, you're more than welcome to let me know that and I can share anything that you need. So I'm just going to type my email in the chat and you can grab it from there if you need it. Okay. So our topic today is helping members reflect, basically the reflect portion of the experiential learning model. So this may be something you've seen that's familiar. Maybe you've seen some version of it. If you open most of your 4-H curriculum, you're going to find it in there. So basically it's we call it sometimes the do, reflect, apply model, the experiential learning model. There's lots of options, but hopefully you've at least heard about it or seen it. As a 4-H educator, it should be part of your everyday vocabulary. This specific model, the one that's in these colors, is from Iowa, but all of us probably have a version that we enjoy using or that we maybe have even hanging on our wall. So I think it's important that we reflect a little bit on the history or where this came from, being that we continually talk about us being a research-based institution and organization. So the actual history of this model is that it was adopted from something that David Kolb put together in 1994. And so this is his model. You can see there's lots of similarities, maybe doesn't look quite as pretty or quite as similar. He had 4 quadrants that he has in his model, but you can kind of see where they relate to ours. I do like that, like our model, his model is also continuous. So here's that concrete experience, the do. The reflect is this abstract conceptualization and the reflective observation, and the application is the active experimentation. So I'm going to look a little bit closer at this. So once again, he called it his learning cycle. We call it experiential learning model, but very similar things. So basically the concept is the concrete experience is that they do something, a concrete experience. It might be new, it might be something different, but they're trying something or doing something. And then what we call the reflection part, they reflect on their new experience in light of what you already know. And then there's also figure out if there's inconsistencies in understanding. The third part is abstract concepts. I think it can be put between the reflect and apply. I think this is maybe the generalized portion of our model, but it's the idea of what are these new ideas and how can these abstract thinkings apply to something else? And then the active experimentation is where the application where you're putting it into the world around you. So I think that this is a really good background for me to know that these are very similar and we can really talk about how this is research-based on a model called the Kolb's learning model from 1994. So now there's a little bit here of opportunity to interact, and most of this should be super simple and easy things that you should know. But this do experience, what does that look like in the 4-H? Give me, if you want to write in the chat, an example, or if you want to unmute and shout it out loud, what does that look like in a 4-H program? One example of what that might look like. The quiet room, gotta love it. Great, baking a cake, making a project, super simple stuff. You're doing something. These are great examples. So some of the ones I have, making something, you could be actually playing a game, particularly if it's a leadership or communication doing experience. You could be giving a presentation. You could be specifically working with your animal, if it's that, or you could be making a motion at a club meeting or being active in a club meeting. So really lots of things that we're doing in 4-H are that do portion. And so I think it's important to help our volunteers remember that it's not just the thoughtful do that they're thinking in their head, that really all of our 4-H experiences in some way, shape, or form can be a do. So there's an opportunity to reflect and apply on almost anything and everything that becomes part of the 4-H program, even those things that maybe weren't intentionally part of our do. Okay, so then we have the share part. It's the what happened. What does this look like to you in a 4-H meeting? When do you see this happening? Right, quiet group again. I'm probably going to ask about process generalization and apply, so think about this. But what this might look like in a 4-H meeting is where they talk about the results. They have a chance to actually tell you what they did, discuss how they felt about it, maybe talk about, and you can talk freely at that time. So this might be an opportunity for our leaders to ask some probing questions. So yeah, at the end of the meeting, it could happen maybe when they're an outreach opportunity, but what did you do? What happened? What did you see, hear, feel, taste? Was it easy? Was it difficult? And I'll show you some resources in a little bit that actually have some of these questions, but these are really easy ones that could apply to almost every situation. So now if we look at the process, it's the concept of what was important about that doing activity. So not just what did you do, but out of that, what did you do? What was the important aspects that came out of that? So what does this look like in a 4-H meeting? It's the idea of discussing, reflecting on the experience. How did you carry it out? What were the steps that you took to make that happen? Where were the problems within that occurred, or what were the successes? What were your personal experiences versus somebody else's? Were there recurring themes that occurred, like the problems that we talked about before? And this is where you start to do that application process. So what similar experiences have you had like this? Like, have you had similar problems? Have you had similar successes? Did you feel the same way about this activity as you did another opportunity in your life? So this is where we start to really move into that apply. And so that's the apply, or the generalization is the so what. I think the so what is so important, and oftentimes we never ever get here with our 4-H program. I have a mentor, she actually works in Kansas now, who literally will constantly text me, call me, or ask me questions about the so what. And she actually planned all of her programming with the so what in mind. And so it's kind of a unique way to look at an opportunity and look at a way to do a 4-H program. So the so what might be able to found in connecting that with real life. What does that really mean to me? Finding trends or common truths within the experience, and then capturing key terms or life skill terms. What did you learn about yourself? What life skill is important to you? So you want to use the life skill wheel, or what do you learn related to this parts of your life? And so this is where this life skill model, this is obviously the Iowa model. It was developed in Iowa, but I'm sure lots of us have seen it or have definitely a way that we use it or hang it on our wall or talk about it. But having this in mind during that generalization and providing the opportunities with leaders and kids to really think about the so what that they learned through the experience can be really beneficial. And then the now what? Like, what happens next? What do we do based on the information that we learned? The apply process. So apply it to similar learning, apply it to past experiences, talk about how you can use this information in the future, and create ownership of what you learned. Similarly, some very similar questions. So these are the questions that might come. How can you apply what you learned in a new situation? How can you act differently next time this happens? Or how could you apply a skill learned activity to the future? So using one of those life skills from the targeting life skills model might be a great one here. So I think part of what we need to focus on as educators is providing our volunteers some of the resources, some of those questions, some of the ways to make that happen. And so what we're going to do today is really focus on that reflect section and how to provide that to our leaders. But in the meantime, I want to have a little quiz. And so the answers to the next slides are, they could be do, reflect, apply. They could be experience, share, process, generalize, apply, whatever's easiest for you. But on the next screen, you're going to see a quote or a comment or an activity. And in the chat, I want you to write what part of the model you think it relates to. So if you were going to ask this question, what part of the model would it fit in? What advice would you give to someone who wants to learn more about teamwork? So based on what we talked about, what part of the model would that question come from? We have an apply in the chat. Anybody else want to take a guess? Experience the doing, maybe. The apply, the doing. So the correct answer is that generalize. We talked about that generalize being the life skill relation. So helping them think about what they just learned from the teamwork that they did and how they might give advice to somebody else to do that same teamwork in a different situation. So we're asking them to take their teamwork experience and then generalize it and apply it to different areas of their life. All right, here's the next one. What did you do to plan your project? Where might that fit within the do, reflect, apply model? Got a couple reflects. Any other thoughts? Reflect, process. So we're all in that reflect section. Correct. So we're sharing. And it could also be the processing, depending how deep that you go. But it's that beginning of, you just did it. Now, how did you plan that? Like, what were the steps that made you actually do that activity? All right, here's the next one. How will you act differently in the future as a result of this experience? This one should be pretty easy, hopefully. How will you act differently in the future as a result of this experience? Right. Everybody's got this one. I think it almost is like the word for word. It is the application. How are you going to change the future or make the future different? All right, this one should be pretty easy too. So what part of the model is playing a team building game? Good job, everybody. The do part, right? We're going to do something like play a game or make a project. All right, I think this is the last one. What made this a good project for our club? Good, we got some reflections in there and specifically the processing. They identify themes and problems and opportunities. Or so the opportunities part might be the question that's directly answered here. Okay, so as I told you before, we're going to really focus on this reflect in the next part of this talking about this model. So I think that we do a great job and our volunteers do a really great job of doing, but sometimes that's where it gets left. And I am super guilty of this also. I think it's just easier to do a whole bunch of stuff and then forget about the parts that come next. And then we really lose out on a lot of opportunities for our young people to really think about what they're doing. And maybe that for me happened when I was in my mid-20s, maybe it probably didn't happen when I was 12. So in turn, if we can provide some of those experiences hands-on to let them do that reflection piece, that's perfect. So there are tons and tons of resources out there that provide sharing, processing, generalization, application questions. So this is one that I actually have posted on our website and I'd be willing to share with you. It was originally from the University of Missouri, but I don't think it's on their website anymore. But this is a great resource to share with your leader so they have those questions in their back pocket. I've even seen where they've actually made lanyards and they do a share, process, generalize, apply, and they take 3 or 4 of these questions and they put them on there. So that way you always have that tool. There's also cards from the University of Minnesota that do the same thing, but it's nice to have these loads of questions in your back pocket that you can ask at any point in time when you're doing an activity. So hopefully you have some type of way to share this type of resource with your volunteers. And like I said, I do have these. I don't think you can find them anymore on the Missouri website, but I do have them and I believe they're posted on our website under some of our additional trainings. In addition to asking questions, can anybody think of additional ways that we can help young people process or reflect on the things that they did during a 4-H activity? Maybe some more applicable hands-on related activities that aren't just doing. What are some other things we might be able to do with our young people? Or other ways that you've used to reflect members' learning.
You want to write something? All I can think of is like the way that we would do things and
I don't know who's not muted. If you're talking on purpose, awesome.
which was like
Okay, so some options I thought of, or maybe that we've done, is you could use journaling. So after an activity, you could have kids write down specific words or sentences or paragraphs, depending on their age, or maybe draw pictures that talk a little bit about the experience and help them maybe to draw things that were important to them, or things that they saw happen, or things that mean a lot to them, and that can then move on to that application process using those pictures of different, using the prompts differently with pictures. You can also have them interview each other. So maybe it's not just you asking them questions, it's them asking each other questions. A great time to use older members to maybe talk to younger members and share those activities with them. You might have a worksheet instead of having the questions read out loud, maybe not as fun, but you could definitely do that. And then you can have them take it home. So at least that way, maybe if you don't have time during the activity to do something, they have opportunities at home with their parents or with them, even by themselves, to reflect on that activity. And you can talk about it at your next meeting, or you can even just try to talk about it through a newsletter or different ways to engage them if you can't actually bring them back together. And lastly, I think that we don't do debriefing activities enough. And somebody just put Michelle Cummings into the chat. Thanks, Sam. And that's actually my next, well, first I had this quote. We have to remember the experience itself is neither productive nor non-productive. It's just an experience. How we reflect on it is what makes it significant or not significant. So in turn, I think that's always important to remember, is that we can have an experience and it can just be an experience, but until we actually spend some time reflecting on it, it becomes significant in our life, or if we don't reflect on it, it could at that point become non-significant. So here's the quote, or here's the precursor to Michelle Cummings. If you haven't been to a training with Michelle Cummings and your state has some way to get her there, I highly suggest bringing her in. She's probably one of the most engaging people to do facilitation or debriefing activities. And I think this Teachable Moment book is probably something that everybody should have on their bookshelf. If you're from Wyoming, when I first started, I bought it for every county because I think it's important. But in turn, if you don't, I would highly suggest investing the $12 or $15 it takes to get this book called A Teachable Moment. And the activities that I'm going to share with you are adaptations from this book. And then at the end, I'll ask you to share if you have any additional ones that you want, that you really enjoy doing or that you like to do. So these debriefing activities that I'm going to cover can be done via Zoom, as you'll see here in the next few minutes, or they can be done in person, which is even better because doing things in person is always better. But I think it's nice to know that there are ways that we can debrief when we don't all have to be together and make it fun and engaging. So one of the first ones is called Alphabet Block. And for this activity, you'll potentially need Scrabble pieces. If you don't have Scrabble pieces, you can make your own. Or in my case, you can just show a picture of Scrabble pieces. So the goal here is that you're going to look at the Scrabble pieces and you're going to, if you were doing this activity in person, you toss them out towards the group and let them know that only the ones facing up are the letters they can use. Obviously, we're going to do it online and all the ones I have are facing up. You could also take a picture if you were doing this online. So what I want you to do is to work to create connections or words from the various letters that you're going to see in front of you about things that you've learned so far today, or maybe things that you are important to your job. And then you can share them in the chat. So the goal is to pick out words that you can form. Maybe all the letters don't have to be there. Maybe only the first letter of the word is there, but words that you could use about something that you've learned today or something that you want to share about the experiential learning model. All right, on your marks, get set. There you go. So someone wrote life. That was one. Good job. Any other words you can see? Do. Excellent. That's a good one. Share. I'm impressed you found share. That's pretty cool. Doing. I like it. Without the G, because the G is not in there. It's good. File. Perfect. same letters as life, so that's pretty cool. Phone. Old. Somebody wrote old, haha, gruddy. Old is good though, because this is something that we've probably been using for years and years and years. And I think oftentimes we don't spend enough time thinking about the reflection piece. So that's actually a great one. I think you actually could find haha in there too. So that's pretty good. So as you can see, this can be a great way for you to debrief. If you did an activity with your kids, you can throw a bunch of letters out and especially if you have older kids who are good at spelling, or this could even be used with your volunteers or your adults, but they can form words and you can spend more time doing that. I obviously don't want to sit here and spend the whole time doing this. Need is another one that someone found. So, but what an easy way to debrief with things that you might have laying around or things you can easily put together. Okay. The next one is called crossword ending. So on the next page, you're going to see a word in the middle of the page that describes something about this workshop that we've done or this training. As a group, we can make a crossword puzzle of things we have learned today or words that describe today. So I'm going to try my best to use the annotation. I'm not very good at it, but you can also use the annotation, I think. And we're going to try to write words and you can put them in the chat. So they're going to go off the letters to make a crossword puzzle. So let's see how we do and let's see how my annotating skills are today. Okay, so the word is reflect. What words can we build off of the word reflect? See if this works. Okay. Got my little pen out. So anything that starts or has these letters in it. Apply. So right here, A P P L Y. There we go. Okay. Anybody else have anything that we could add? I didn't spell it right. A P. Oh. Oh my goodness. Sorry. I don't know how to unannotate. Ugh. Okay, you get the gist. So just this is a Y. Good job. And this goes away. Teach. All right. T-E. I love that I spelled that wrong. That was classic. Teach. And my handwriting looks atrocious. Connect. Share. Let's see. S-H-A-R-E. And this would be so cool in person. Oh, journal. I don't even know where to write that, but I'm sure it fits somewhere. But I think it could go on this O. This would be so cool to do in person because you could have different groups together and they can make their own crosswords from different words that you give out. So it's a kind of a fun way, again, to have the group talking and coming up with words that reflect the activity that they did. And this is even something you could do with a little bit younger kids if you have older kids mixed in, because the older kids can help to figure out where exactly the words go based on the crosswords that's there. Okay, so the next one is called food for thought. So on the next page, you will see a word. Oh, just kidding. This is not it. Okay, so I'm reading what I wrote and it's from the last slide. So I have to figure out how to unannotate everything because that is not my skill. Nope. Anybody good at unannotating and getting rid of all this stuff? Select. Maybe if I just click this.
You should be able to click on the little annotate button on the side, and when you click on it, or let's see, there's an option to erase your drawings or something like that, a delete button, clear my drawings.
There's a vanishing pen. Oh, that made everything go away. Okay, I have nothing because that didn't work. So I apologize for what you're going to see for the rest of the time. Maybe if I stop sharing. Maybe that will work. Okay, I think that'll work. So I'll reshare this slide and then I think we'll be good to go. So sorry, my Zoom skills are obviously not as good as they need to be. Okay, so the next one is called Food for Thought. And the idea with this one is that you're going to see a place setting, and the goal is to relate to the item at the place setting to a word or thought from today. And so you may have seen something super similar with like you hand out the like shapes. There's a heart that Michelle Cummings does, like the body parts, or she does the different faces. It's the same idea. It's the idea of relating something on this plate to something that you learned today. So what kind of things might be on your plate after today? What kind of things do you want to take a stab at? What kind of things do you want to cover, like a napkin? What kind of things are cutting away at your time or maybe barriers to doing different activities like this? What kind of things would you like to be spoon fed or do you need help with? So this is a great way for you to reflect too with your volunteers or your kids to get new ideas or things that maybe you need to assist them with. So it's kind of a cool activity. Filling your cup with knowledge. So that's a great one. We've filled our cup. Hopefully it's not overflowing and you have lots more room to put more knowledge in. You're taking a stab at something potentially new. But it's a great way to, and you can have these, cut to the chase. I like that. You could have actual silverware or a plate sitting in front of them versus a picture so they can manipulate it. I always think that when I have stuff in my hands, I tend to think better about the activity if I can actually be touching the thing that I'm trying to, so that you could even pass out this stuff and they could have to think of something related to the part of the plate or part of the table setting that's in their hands, or in turn you could let them choose one. So there's lots of it, but the questions that I came up with related to, or they may be in Michelle's book, Michelle Cummings' book, is what kind of things are on your plate after today? What kind of things do you want to take a stab at? What kind of things do you want to cover? What do you need help with being spoon fed, those kind of things. So that's a really easy one too. And most of you, my guess is, have a lot of this stuff in your cupboards, in your office. So it doesn't require you to go out and buy a whole bunch of new things or get new stuff. Okay, the next one is probably one of my favorite and probably one of the easiest to use, and you may already be using this tool or something similar, but it's called picture cards. And so they sell picture cards on Amazon. You can buy them for like $37. Michelle Cummings sells picture cards, or you can go online and print them yourself, laminate them. But the idea is that you put a whole bunch of pictures out in front of them. They pick one picture and then they use it to relate something they learned in the training or in the activity to that picture. So you can see here's a bunch of pictures. So if you want to pick a random picture, and it can be the same one as somebody else, and maybe just write a short little blurb about something you learned today or that you've learned about the experiential learning model that relates to that picture. Ooh. Gretty's set on fire. So Gretty's from Wyoming, so I'm excited to see how she uses this in her county. So thanks, Gretty. So this training sets us on fire. I mean, I look at the hand and think about how some of us as educators lend a helping hand to our volunteers to help them really think about how to work their way through the model. Again, hopefully these are super easy ways that you can help debrief or help your volunteers think to debrief. So someone wrote balloons. By using these concepts, we can take youth to the next level through their 4-H experience. Excellent. Some of these pictures, I don't even know what they are, so they're up for interpretation. Hopefully none of us have the foxes fighting in the corner because our volunteers are mad at us for asking them to do something else. Who knows? A roadmap, great, because you see that there's the world there, and plus there's a big long road. So growing you through learning the flower, that's great, especially when we talk about the Thrive model. It kind of makes us think about the flower. So, but you can see another easy activity. So those are all the formal ones I have for you to participate in. I'm going to share with you a couple other ones that I like because they're easy and you don't need a lot of stuff to do them. The first one is called All My Neighbors, and you may have played it similar to Have You Ever? And so what they can say is something like, through this, I learned that teamwork is really important, and whoever agrees with them stands up and then they switch places. So it's kind of the same concept of have you ever, but the words that they're saying are something that they learned through being part of the activity. But it's nice because it's interactive, and younger kids can do it too, because you don't have to write things down or actually make something. It can be more just a thought process. I personally love playing with clay. So clay sculptures will always be part of my activities because I think it's fun to manipulate things. So the idea with clay sculptures is that you give everybody a piece of clay, or you can use Play-Doh. You could even have them make clay or Play-Doh, and that could be part of their debriefing activity. They make something that reminds them of something they learned today, and then they share it with the group. Another fun one that maybe I've never actually used, but I think it'd be super awesome, is called Fear in a Hat. And the idea is at the beginning of the meeting, especially if you have a meeting that might be a little bit more concerning, or that people might have some worries or some anxiety about, you can have them write their anxiety. This would be great for when a new group of teens or young people are meeting each other. They have write something that they're anxious, or that they have a question, a fear, a concern about in the hat. And then you mix them up, and then you do the activity or do the process. And then at the end, you can go through and pick those out, and you can have them talk up the fears, and if they came true, or what we could do to alleviate them, or how maybe what they learned that made them not so anxious or fearful of the thing that they maybe were concerned about at the beginning. And then the last one is the same concept of probably clay sculptures, is the idea of group drawing. So you can in turn have them so this is kind of like a relay race. And so the idea is that the first person goes up and they start to draw, and they get so many seconds to do that. The next person goes up and they had to add on to it. And the concept is that you have what's something you learned today, and it can be, and then at the end they have to explain their drawing. And I also think it helps them to debrief, maybe where each one had a different thought process about what they learned today, and then having to come together as a group and draw something that maybe doesn't always connect, but then they can make those connections through their group drawing. So once again, those are from Michelle Cummings' book. If you don't have it, I suggest you get it. You can also Google debriefing activities, or reach out if you are looking for some additional ones that I've used or that I enjoy doing. I did put my email again at the beginning, so if you're looking for this PowerPoint presentation, I'm more than willing to share it with you if you want to use it with your volunteers, or with staff in your office, or with your kids. Or in turn, if you're looking for those questions, I can get those to you too. To kind of finish, I want to know if you have any that I didn't cover that are maybe your favorites that you use to debrief, or to use that reflection part of the processing of the do, reflect, apply, that you would like to share with a group that you know has been successful, or that you really enjoy doing with a group of people. While you're thinking, I'll just keep talking a little bit. Another easy one to make is the thumb balls. If you've ever used those, you can use a soccer ball. You can use a beach ball, but you write processing questions on the ball, and then they throw in wherever their left or right thumb. You can decide lands, they have to answer that question. So that's kind of a fun one. But there's lots of them that you can use in order to kind of make sure that you're reflecting upon the experiences that you have. So that's all I have. I hope that you were able to gain some valuable insight from this, and really think about how we help members to move past the doing, and how we help volunteers help members to move past the doing. I think there's a lot of really great concepts that we can share with our volunteers, and have them do maybe one a month at their club activity. You could put it in your newsletter to challenge them to reflect at their next club or project meeting, and give them an activity to make it happen. You could put those questions within your newsletter to show them what those questions are. So you could have a share and process question every newsletter that you send out. You can put them on Facebook, whatever works for you. I think there's lots of ways that we can use this. So thank you everybody for coming. I don't have anything else. I'll stick on a little bit longer, but I'm going to stop recording if you have any questions and you want to know more.